Alrighty, guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today, I'm very excited about the topic. It's going to be a good one, something that a lot of people have asked me to talk about. Before we get into that, if you can see all of these lovely people here on the side of the screen, I'm streaming this live. I go live on Twitch pretty much every day during the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to click the link in the description, it'll take you straight to the Twitch channel. You can follow there. It doesn't cost you any money, but you can join while we're doing this live. We have a lot of fun. I swear my streams aren't weird. Everyone's very normal, and we're not weird at all, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty, so today we are going to be talking about a video that was uploaded by none other than Dr. Jason Fung. What is the video that we're going to be talking about? Well, let's find out. Alrighty, so this is the video here, and it is called How Vinegar Helps Weight Loss. Now, if you're not familiar with Dr. Jason Fung, he is a very prominent keto person, basically, is what he's kind of known for, keto and low carb, and he talks a lot about those things. And if you are someone that has been on the internet for any amount of time, especially on weight loss internet, you have seen people taking shots of apple cider vinegar, like absolute
psychopaths,
right? We all love it. Who doesn't love to take a shot of apple cider vinegar in the morning? Delicious. My favorite.
Nice.
So let's find out what Dr. Jason Fung is talking about with vinegar and weight loss. Now, a disclaimer, he's a doctor. He uses very big words. I'm just putting it out there, all right? Because sometimes I be getting confused. Because I'm just a dumb YouTuber, all right? So just, bear with me.
Today I'm going to talk about how taking carbohydrates with other things can actually make the glycemic effect better. And it's coming right up. We know that carbohydrates tend to increase blood glucose as well as insulin. And that hormone insulin is really important because that's what tells your body to store that calories, and that can be stored as body fat. So if we're trying to lose it, we want to try and minimize that effect, and that's why a lot of people use low carbohydrate diets. But there's actually...
So one of the biggest claims that this video kind of makes is insulin rising equals bad. When, in my opinion, insulin rising equals your body is working normally. Unless you have a reason to be worried about insulin rising and falling, right? You're type 1 diabetic, you have diabetes or other things like that, you shouldn't be super stressed out about your insulin going up and down and your blood glucose going up and down, because that means your body is working how it should, right? I just want to put that out there.
A number of factors that influences the effect of carbohydrates and how high the blood glucose goes, which is also called the glycemic index. That is, a certain type of carbohydrate is going to raise the blood glucose more than others. And that
so this is like something, I don't know how many of you guys have been in the game for a super long time, but I know I've been doing this for like 10 years now. And I remember when I first started losing weight, and I think it's still kind of there, but there was like this big thing where it was about rice, right? Brown rice is healthy and good, and white rice, if you eat it, you are going to die very soon. It was like brown rice is healthy, white rice is literally the devil. And a big reason was because of the glycemic index. So it showed that a lot of times white rice would spike your blood glucose level, would spike your insulin, and brown rice would not do it as much, right? And so that was something that you would hear a lot. So I used to only eat brown rice. I would never eat white rice because it's unhealthy and it'll spike my blood glucose and my insulin will go through the roof. And I thought white rice equals I'm going to be fat. Brown rice equals I'm going to be skinny. It's just not how it works, right?
That's easily measured in a standardized fashion with the glycemic index. The first factor that's important is the total number of carbohydrates, and this is well known to carbohydrate counters, for example.
This is the most important aspect of all of this. And in my opinion, people like Dr. Jason Fung and other proponents of keto take something that is true, like if you are eating too many carbs, you will not lose weight, But then they say, but it's not because of these things, it's actually because of these things, right? The reason that if you are eating too many carbs and you're not losing weight is because you are eating too many carbs. What does that mean? What are carbs? Carbs are calories. So if you're eating too many carbs, you are eating too many calories. If you are eating too many calories, you will not be losing weight.
Well, duh.
It's that simple, right? There's a lot of complex stuff behind it, but there is no reason to go any further and overcomplicate it for yourself if you're trying to lose weight. And that's what a lot of this stuff is. It takes something that's true, and then it breaks it down into things that are unnecessary for you to stress about, that make people worry way too much. But because they are worried about these things, they end up cutting their carbs, and they say, oh, it's because of this thing and that thing and that thing, and it's actually because they cut their carbs, which means they cut their calories.
An average North American might take 200 to 300 carbohydrates per day, whereas low carbohydrate is variously defined. It might be 50 grams per day, and some people go all the way up to 130 grams per day. And the ketogenic diet is usually less than 20 grams per day. But that's only one of the factors. A second factor is the net carbs. And again, fairly well known, you take the total number of carbs and you subtract the fiber. And that's because fiber is not absorbed by the body. So if you have 100 grams of carbohydrates, but 50 of them is fiber, you don't really see that other 50. The other 50 grams of fiber mostly moves through your gut and is often excreted into the stools. The third is...
So net carbs were really popular. I feel like they were really popular, but like it was a big buzzword a few years ago. Again, when I was first starting my weight loss and I was first starting my channel, so many people talked about net carbs, and there was actually a lot of companies, Quest was one of them, that would advertise certain net carbs on their bars or on their products, and it was found out that it wasn't even necessarily true, right? Like the advertisements that they were making weren't even necessarily true. The reason I bring that up is because it's really hard to track and be exact about these numbers. So that's why, again, it's like there's no reason, in my opinion, to overcomplicate something that is already hard enough. Weight loss, right? To overcomplicate it and be like, I need to track my carbs and my net carb, all of that stuff. It's just...
is food order. And we covered that in our previous video about eating the carbs last because it...
So someone in chat actually said this, and it's true, right? Net carbs are super important for diabetics, right? Almost all of this stuff comes from that, right? Just because something works for a certain group of people, diabetics, like there are genuine things that exist that really help them, right? But there is no reason for us, if someone isn't diabetic, there's no reason for you to do that thing. It doesn't make any sense, right? And I kind of fell into this because I was like super into tracking my blood glucose. I was like really interested in it, and I was wearing a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. I had it on my thing, and I was like really interested. And guess what? At the end of the day, it didn't matter. Nothing. It didn't matter. There's like, if my insulin spiked, guess what? I was totally fine because I'm not diabetic, and there's no reason for me to stress about it. It's like picking extra things to be stressed about for no reason. If you are a healthy person that does not have diabetes, there is no reason for you to stress about this. There's just no reason for it. There are other things that you can worry about that can yield you better results, in my opinion.
Has a tremendous effect on how high your blood glucose and insulin goes. Eating the carbs first versus eating the carbs last can have almost double the effect on the blood glucose. The fourth thing we're going to talk about today is what other foods you can take with those carbs to sort of blunt the effect on blood glucose. In Japan, they like to look at rice because that's their main carbohydrate.
Okay, so I'm going to try my best to explain the issue that I have here. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not as smart as Mr. Fung, or Dr. Fung, sorry. But I want to explain for people that maybe don't understand the issue that I have here, okay? So his biggest thing is raising your insulin, having that spike. That's a problem, right? All right? Listen to Dr. John. I have a doctorate in YouTube. It's very hard to get. All right, I have a certificate and everything. And so he says eating low carb, making sure that that insulin doesn't spike is the problem. In my opinion, if you are in a caloric deficit, that it just, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? And so for the issue that I have, okay, let me try to explain this. If you are constantly spiking your insulin, you're eating a lot. And so if you start eating a little bit less, start moving more, be in a deficit, you're not going to continuously be spiking that insulin to where it's a problem, and you will start losing weight. So again, it's like, why worry about this other thing when if you were to just focus on the, the base of the pyramid, the things that matter, the foundation, and you could see results, why would you start worrying about the top little portion of the pyramid? Okay, hopefully that made sense, but I don't know.
Hydrate. And they've done studies where they will look at the glycemic index of rice compared to rice combined with other meals. And there's two things that they have looked at in particular. One is vinegar. And it turns out when you add that vinegar to the rice, the glycemic index is reduced significantly. In sushi rice, it drops down to 59 compared to an average of 100 for white rice. The other thing they noted was that eating pickled foods, which is also very common, pickled vegetables, will also reduce the glycemic index of.
So here, my question that I would love to ask him is, okay, so you're saying this, so you believe, and I would be curious what his answer would be, is that if you eat the same amount of calories of both of those rices, rye, I don't know. If you eat the same amount of calories of both of those different rices, or whatever the plural is of those, right? You're telling me that if you have the vinegar one, you are not going to gain weight, but if you have the one that doesn't have the vinegar, you will gain weight. I'm sorry, but nah, dog. I don't believe that. I don't believe that adding vinegar will make it so, oh, you know what? You're not gaining weight anymore. Like, nah.
White rice, down to about 75. Several other things were noted. Eating rice with milk, for example, can also lead to high drops, and that might be because of the whey protein that tends to stimulate the insulin. So
I'm sorry, bro. I'm just thinking of you watching a friend eating rice while drinking whole milk, and then they're like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight. And you're just like, what? Yeah, bro. This helps with you'd look at them and be like, come on, really? You think that's, nah.
It might be a mixed bag with the milk. They also looked at bean products because it's very common to eat soybeans and natto, which as well as miso, which is also made from soy. And these bean products, when consumed with the rice, also blunts the effect of the blood glucose. Many studies have shown that the addition of lemon juice to carbohydrates can significantly reduce the glycemic index of those foods up to 40-50%, which is very striking because it's the same total number of carbohydrates and the exact same type of carbohydrates. So how can adding the acid like lemon juice make it so much better?
Why? So again, I just want to make it clear, right? I'm not saying that what he is saying isn't true, right? As far as the science and like how it spikes your blood sugar and all of that. What I am saying is, does it really matter if your goal is weight loss? Is this something that you should be stressing out about? That's the point that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that he's lying. I'm not saying that these claims that he is making aren't true. I'm like, if someone is trying to lose weight, is this something they need to worry about? That's what I'm trying to say.
It turns out that it comes down to how our body digests starch. There are two key enzymes to be aware of: salivary, meaning in the saliva, and pancreatic, alpha amylase. Amylase is an enzyme that breaks down the starch. Starches are chains of sugars like glucose. So in order for you to digest them, you have to cut them up into smaller pieces so that it can be digested. As soon as we start to eat the bread or the other carbohydrate, the salivary alpha amylase begins to work. It starts to digest it. And then that amylase that's in the saliva is still active even down in the stomach until the pH goes down to about 3 or 4 where it gets inactivated. Then, as the stomach pushes out the food, the pancreatic enzyme takes over and digests it. So most people had assumed previously that the pancreas did most of the work because there wasn't that much time in the chewing and in the stomach. But that doesn't turn out to be true. In regular meals, as you're eating, the pH of the stomach actually goes up to about 4.5 to 7 and may take 1 to 2 hours to drop into the range where you neutralize the salivary amylase. And therefore, up to 60 to 80% of the starch in bread may happen before the stomach discharges into the pancreas. In this study,
So, I mean, I don't really have much to say there. He's using a bunch of words, and I'm just like, alrighty, okay. So, I don't know. Again, these are big words, bro. My brain, it doesn't register these things, you know? It just goes over my head.
acid-induced reduction of the glycemic response to starch-rich foods, they are looking at the salivary alpha amylase inhibition hypothesis. And what they did was they took some bread and pasta and gluten-free bread, and they wanted to test how much saliva can break down these foods. So they mixed it with some saliva, they chopped it up, and then they added either water or lemon juice, and then they tested how much was digested. This was done outside the body or in vitro. And the effect was most prominent for the bread. When you look at the amount of starch that was released or digested into these smaller segments, less than half of the starch was released just by adding the lemon juice. The lemon juice had blocked the salivary alpha amylase, and therefore the starch was not being digested and therefore couldn't be absorbed as quickly, and therefore the rise in the blood glucose would be much slower.
So again, all of that was to explain that lemon juice or vinegar or whatever thing you want to use helps with your blood glucose not rising, your insulin not rising. And again, my counter to that is if you are not diabetic and you don't have issues with that, why should you even worry about it, right? So you're telling me that if I want to eat bread, your boy has to suck on a lemon? I'm good. You know, I'm just going to eat the bread and I'll be all right. Because guess what? My body works okay and I can have spikes and I can have drops because that's how the body works.
You also see the same effect with vinegar in bread. In this study, called vinegar supplementation, lowers glucose and insulin.
I get frustrated, man. Okay, I get frustrated about stuff like this because then you have influencers on their freaking stories posting themselves taking shots of apple cider vinegar in the morning and people thinking they need to do the same thing. And then, of course, products start being made. Now there's gummies with apple cider vinegar and you can get this thing with apple cider vinegar in it. You can buy this thing with apple cider vinegar. And then people start to think, I need to buy the thing that has apple cider vinegar in it because that will help me lose weight. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. It doesn't, I promise you. Trust me, if there was a product that helped you lose weight, we would know about it. And it wouldn't be just a supplement. It would be a drug that had to be regulated. Because guess what? There are drugs that are regulated that do help with weight loss. But you're not getting it at freaking down the street at the supplement store in your mall. It's not happening, right? You're not getting it from the girl that takes the gummies every morning. You're not getting it from her. It's not happening. You are wasting your money on these products. It's not necessary. And then people use videos like this from people that are doctors, and then they say this is the reason that it works. And you're not a doctor, so you can't say anything against it. And maybe I'm not a doctor, but I do have a doctorate in YouTube. Thank you very much.
Insulin responses and increases satiety after a bread meal in healthy subjects. What they did was they took people and they gave them bread. And they tested them with various levels of vinegar, a little bit, a medium amount, and a lot. And then they tested the blood glucose and the blood insulin. And what they find is very striking. There's a clear dose-response relationship that the more vinegar you take with the same amount of bread, the lower your blood glucose and the lower your insulin, because it's probably not being completely digested. So therefore, your body isn't seeing as much of the simple sugars that are all chopped up. And also, it produces the highest satiety. So you're getting this sort of double effect. The bread with the vinegar isn't producing as much effect, but it's also making you not want to eat as much.
So that last part, right? If it helps with satiety, then that in and of itself is a tangible thing that can help people, right? If something helps you feel more full, then that will make it so you're not eating as much, and that can make it so you don't eat as much and then you don't gain weight, right? And it helps you lose weight. There are things in a lot of the stuff that you hear and all of this stuff that are legit, right? Having a little bit more fat. This is why keto has gotten so popular, because having more fat, a lot of people are more satiated on that type of diet. And so therefore it makes it so they don't eat as many calories. So it's not some magic trick that's happening. It's they are feeling more full, so therefore they are not eating as many calories. But then they will proclaim that it's some diet that has solved everything and that everyone has to do this thing, when in reality they are eating foods that make them feel more full, so therefore they're not eating as many calories.
So the bottom line is you don't want to be eating naked carbs. That is carbs just by themselves, because you're going to expose yourself to the maximum glucose. And
I can't, dude, this stuff bothers me so much. So, right, you can't eat naked carbs. Why not? Why are we slut shaming carbs? All right? If they want to be naked, let them be naked, you know? But again, it's like, oh, the naked carbs are going to make you have the biggest spike, so therefore they are the most evil. Dude, it's like shaming something for doing what it does. Like, there's nothing wrong with that unless you have issues with blood sugar, right? Unless you're diabetic, then yes, you have to be careful of that. My sister-in-law is type 1 diabetic. She has to be very careful of that. But bless her heart, I'm not. So there's no reason for me to stress about it. Why would I do that, right? If someone has a disease, that really sucks, and I feel so sorry for them, but there's no reason for me to do what they have to do. It doesn't make any sense.
Maximum insulin responses. In fact, the best thing is to add a little bit of acid, which is going to inhibit the digestion of the foods, which is going to make you see less of that carbohydrate. So you can use things such as fermented foods, which have lactic acid, vinegar, which is acetic acid, or lemons or lemon juice, which has citric acid. And if you do that, you're going to see a significant benefit in terms of lowering of that sugar. And eating naked carbs was a big mistake for people who were told to eat an ultra low fat diet, because if you're trying to cut down the fats, a lot of times you're not going to have the protein either. So you're going to get those naked carbs like white bread and jam, which are just going to spike your glucose, spike your insulin, and then be digested so fast that it's going to leave you ravenous shortly after.
Okay, so right there, right? If you are eating something that is making you not feel full, then yes, of course, that is not going to be the best thing to do. So instead of being like, never eat white bread and jam, maybe just add some fat to it, right? Maybe have a peanut butter and jelly. Maybe something that has another macronutrient that will make you feel a little bit more full. But for some people, eating bread and jam is totally fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that for them. And so this is the stuff that, like, yes, there are little bits of truth in it, but there are also so much, it's like intentionally trying to scare people. And I know people might think that I sound like I'm being super negative, and maybe I am. Welcome to my stream. But, like, I just don't like when people do this stuff, because, again, it makes people afraid of certain foods that they don't need to be afraid of. Like, food is your friend, right? We all love Finding Nemo. Food is your friend. I think it was fish are your friend, but whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. There's no reason to be afraid of food unless you have a genuine reason to be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of bread. Don't be afraid of jam. Don't be afraid of anything, right? Find out what works for you. Don't let someone tell you that you can't eat that because that's going to spike your blood sugar and then everything's going to end in the world. Nah. No reason to be afraid.
So keep in mind that the carbohydrates are important in terms of the physiologic response, but there are those 4 important factors, including the total amount, the net carbohydrates, the food order, and also what you take it with, particularly the acid. I hope.
All right. So that's the video. This stuff, it really frustrates me. What's really important to me is I want to help people lose weight. And I really think making it as simple as possible is the best way for the most amount of people to lose weight. And a lot of times people like this overcomplicate it and make it way too scary, and people feel like there's too many rules and they have to follow certain things. I just don't like that. And so that's why I get kind of frustrated with this stuff. But I don't know. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.